The footage was meant to scare my cadets, but it made them afraid of the quiet human sitting in the back row. I remember the exact moment the room changed. The lights in Lecture Hall 7 dimmed to emergency blue, the observation screen unfolded from the ceiling, and 112 cadets from 23 species stopped whispering at once. That almost never happened. Young soldiers love noise. They love confidence. They love pretending fear is something that happens to weaker bloodlines. I allowed them that arrogance for the first 6 minutes because arrogance is useful before you cut it open and show the empty space inside. My name is Commander Vale Threx, Senior Tactical Instructor of the Ardent Spiral Academy, and for 19 standard years I had trained cadets to survive first contact engagements. Not win. Survive. Winning was a privilege earned later. Survival was the lesson most of them failed to respect. So I showed them archive file Black Meridian, a restricted combat recording from a border incident no academy student was supposed to study until final year. It began harmlessly enough. A gray training field under a pale foreign sky, 2 dropships on the ground, 12 armored specialists moving in perfect formation. Their gear weighed nearly 400 pounds each in Earth measurement, though most of my cadets did not appreciate that number. They saw polished armor, shoulder cannons, clean movement, professional spacing. They saw strength they understood. Then the recording shifted. The first marker blinked out. No sound. No dramatic explosion. Just one bright tactical symbol turning black. A few cadets leaned forward. The second marker vanished 8 seconds later. Then a third. Then 2 more at once. The classroom became very quiet. I paused the footage on frame 9042, right as the squad leader turned towards something outside the camera angle. His posture had changed. That mattered. A trained commander does not turn like that unless his instincts have already understood what his pride refuses to admit. I let the image hang there. This, I told them, is what real combat does to arrogance. Nobody laughed. Not even Vaskin, who usually treated fear like a personal insult. His crest flattened against his skull. Good. Fear was finally entering the room. I stepped closer to the screen and magnified the image. You are looking at an elite response unit with superior armor, superior sensors, and complete terrain advantage. In less than 4 minutes, every tactical assumption they made became useless. A claw clicked against a desk somewhere in the rear rows. Someone swallowed too loudly. I was about to continue when Cadet Sarah Vaughn raised one trembling hand. I found that irritating. Interruptions ruin rhythm. "Commander," she said, voice thin, "can you zoom in on the left side of the frame?" I almost refused. Then I saw where she was pointing. Behind the smoke haze, behind the squad leader, almost hidden by a broken piece of field equipment, stood a figure in a plain dark jacket. Small, upright, calm, human-shaped. The room stayed silent, but the silence changed flavor. It stopped being fear of the footage and became fear of recognition. Slowly, one by one, the cadets turned away from the screen and looked toward the back row, where Nathan Carter sat with his hands folded on the desk, his pale face unreadable, as if he had been waiting for this mistake to catch up with him. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved, and in a classroom built for future officers, that was more terrifying than panic. Panic has shape. Panic has noise. This was calculation. Every cadet in Lecture Hall 7 was trying to solve the same impossible equation. The figure on the screen was small by galactic standards, maybe 5 feet 11 inches, narrow compared with a Vascan heavy trooper, almost delicate beside a Torvin Stoneborn, and yet the entire recording seemed to bend around him. Not chase him, not target him, bend around him, like the battlefield itself had learned manners. I looked from the frozen image to the back row. Nathan Carter had not shifted in his seat. Not even his breathing changed. That irritated me more than fear would have. Fear is honest. Fear proves the lesson is working. Calm, in the wrong creature, can become an insult. Cadet Sarah Vaughn lowered her hand slowly, her silver eyes locked on Nathan with the stunned focus of someone who had found a live engine under a dining table. She was not a coward. Sarah came from the Vanari perimeter fleets, where children learn emergency drills before they learn poetry. I had watched her hold formation in zero visibility exercises while larger cadets lost orientation and begged for guidance. But now her fingers trembled against the edge of her desk. Vaskin noticed, of course. Noticed weakness the way a flame notices oxygen. He turned in his seat, crest lifting, tusked jaw curling into that ugly imitation of amusement his species considered charming. "Are we frightened of shadows now?" he said, loud enough for the room to hear. A few cadets gave careful laughs. Not real laughter. Defensive laughter. The kind young soldiers use when silence starts asking questions they cannot answer. Nathan finally looked up. That was all. No challenge. No anger. Just his pale face catching the blue glow of the paused screen, his brown eyes moving once across the class, then returning to commander posture without ever standing. It should have made him look submissive. Somehow, it made the rest of us look loud. "Cadet Carter," I said, keeping my voice level. "Do you recognize this archive?" The question landed harder than I intended. Around him, alien cadets leaned away by inches. Inches matter. In combat psychology, distance is confession. Nathan glanced at the screen, then at me. "I recognize the location, Commander." The room tightened. Sarah whispered something in her native language that the translator refused to render, which usually meant either prayer or profanity. I stepped closer to him, boots striking the polished floor with more force than necessary. That was not my question. Nathan folded his hands again, neat and still. "Then you may want to ask the classified version." A sound moved through the class, soft and sharp, like 100 nervous thoughts colliding. Kor stood up, so fast his chair scraped backward. He was 7 feet tall, armored in academy training plates, every inch of him bred and taught to dominate rooms exactly like this one. "This is absurd," he snapped. "That thing in the footage cannot be a human. Humans need pressure suits in half our training environments. Humans request extra padding on impact floors. Humans file complaints when cafeteria spice levels exceed Garden World's safety limits." More nervous laughter. Nathan did not answer. That made Kor angrier. It made me curious. And curiosity, I had learned too late, is what pride calls fear when it wants to sound educated. Kor did not walk down the aisle so much as claim it. Every step announced weight, rank, and a lifetime of being told that size was the first language of power. His boots struck the floor hard enough to make the desks vibrate. A few smaller cadets pulled their limbs closer to avoid him. That pleased him. I could see it in the angle of his shoulders. Kor Vaskin believed fear was respect with better posture. He stopped beside Nathan Carter and looked down at him the way a mountain might look at a fence. "Stand up, Earthborn," Kor said. "Let the class see the hero hiding behind academy furniture." Nathan looked at the desk in front of him, then at Kor, then at me. He did not stand. "Commander, is this still part of the lesson?" That question should not have bothered me. It was polite, calm, properly addressed, but there was something inside it that made the room colder. Not defiance exactly. Defiance has heat. This was procedure, as if Nathan was confirming whether the academy had officially chosen a bad idea or whether one cadet was simply volunteering for embarrassment. Kor laughed, and this time the laughter around him came faster. Safer. The class wanted permission to return to its old shape, the comfortable shape where humans were fragile and aliens were superior, and frightening footage stayed safely on screens. "Listen to him," Kor said, spreading his arms. "He wants rules. Of course he wants rules. Garden species always love rules when the air gets heavy." Sarah Vaughn turned sharply. "Earth is not a garden world." Kor looked at her as if she had betrayed mathematics. "Earth is a weather accident with oceans. Do not make it sound holy." That earned more laughter, but less than before. Sarah had said the word Earth too carefully. Some of them remembered. The file tags. Death world integration. High gravity tolerance. Unusual endurance. Aggressive problem solving. Phrases administrators used when they wanted danger to sound like diversity. Kor leaned closer to Nathan. "Your people survive because stronger civilizations built the hallways, the stations, the treaties, the warning systems. You are protected by the galaxy you pretend not to need." Nathan blinked once. That was his entire reaction. One blink. I had seen soldiers scream under accusation, posture under insult, rush into foolishness because pride pulled them by the throat. Nathan only blinked, and somehow Kor looked less certain afterward. "You have something to say?" Kor demanded. Nathan glanced at the frozen screen. The shadowy figure behind the smoke still waited there, magnified above us, patient as a memory. "No," Nathan said. "I was just wondering how long it took them to edit out the audio." Sarah went very still. I felt my jaw lock before I understood why. "What audio?" I asked. Nathan did not look away from the screen. The part where they were warned to stay back. No one laughed after that. Kor's crest rose again, but now it was not amusement. It was challenge. He slammed one hand onto Nathan's desk, not hard enough to break it, but hard enough to make the message clear. Then prove it, he said. If that is you, prove it in the pit. The training pit sat beneath the lecture floor, sealed under transparent plates, used for controlled demonstrations and instructor discipline exercises. I should have ended it there. I should have restored order, filed a report, and sent the Black Meridian archive back into restricted storage. Instead, 112 cadets were watching me, waiting to see whether their commander feared a quiet human in the back row. Pride is a poor strategist. It always thinks the next decision belongs to someone else. I touched the control on my wrist console. The floor plates began to separate. Nathan sighed softly, like a man being asked to repeat a meeting that should have been an email. The training pit rose into view beneath us like the academy itself, opening one cautious eye. It was a circular floor 40 feet across, ringed by sensor pillars, padded impact walls, and enough safety fields to make the legal department sleep at night. In theory, no cadet could be permanently harmed inside it. In theory, young officers respected the difference between demonstration and ego. In theory, I was still in control. Kor stepped onto the descending platform first, rolling his shoulders as the academy plates adjusted to his size. His training armor sealed around him with a clean mechanical hiss. Blue status lights ran across his chest, arms, and jaw guard. The suit was not a weapon system. Not officially. It was a response amplifier designed to measure force, movement, balance, and restraint. Cadets called it armor because cadets enjoy simple lies. Nathan Carter came next. He removed his old dark jacket and folded it over the back of his chair with almost offensive care. Under it, he wore the standard black academy undershirt, plain boots, no visible reinforcement, no wrist guards, no ceremonial marks, no dramatic human symbol to make the room feel better about what it was seeing. He looked like someone who had been pulled out of a lunch line, not a combat demonstration. That should have reassured everyone. It did not. Sarah Vaughn watched him with both hands flat against her desk, as if she needed physical proof that the room was still solid. I activated the pit controls. This will be a limited contact tactical assessment, I announced. No lethal strikes. No targeting of breathing structures. No continued engagement after yield signal. Cadet Vaskin will demonstrate standard academy dominance pressure. Cadet Carter will demonstrate defensive compliance. Nathan looked up at me then. Not sharply. Not angrily. Just enough. Defensive compliance, he repeated. The translator gave the words back perfectly, but somehow made them sound worse. Kor laughed from the center of the pit. Do not worry, Earthborn. I will move slowly. Please do, Nathan said. A few cadets made small sounds, and then immediately regretted them. I set the gravity to 1.0 Academy standard, neutral enough for most species, slightly light for Nathan if his Earth records were honest. I expected him to bounce on his heels, test the floor, adjust like the other humans did when entering mixed species environments. He did nothing. He simply stepped into the circle and stood with his hands relaxed at his sides. No fighting stance. No raised guard. No fear display. Kor saw that and mistook it for ignorance. I saw it and felt the first thin thread of doubt pull tight in my chest. Cadets, I said, forcing the lesson forward, observe the importance of posture, mass advantage, and initiative. Pride, again, speaking through my mouth while caution sat gagged in the corner. I gestured to Kor. Begin at quarter speed. Kor ignored the instruction before the last syllable left my mouth. He launched forward at nearly full acceleration, 7 feet of armored confidence crossing the pit in a blur of blue light. The sensor pillars chimed warnings. The safety field brightened. Cadets gasped. Nathan did not retreat. He moved half a step to the left. Half a step. That was all. Kor passed him, overcommit, and caught himself 3 feet from the wall with a skid that made the floor squeal. The room went silent again, but this time it was not because of the archive footage. This time, the lesson had climbed out of the screen. Kor recovered with the furious embarrassment of someone who had expected applause and received physics instead. His boots locked against the pit floor, his armor lights flashing yellow as the academy system politely informed him he had made a tactical mistake in front of 112 witnesses. He did not appreciate the feedback. Lucky step, he said. Nathan turned to face him with the same mild expression. You were leaning too far forward. That was when the first real crack appeared in the room. Not in the wall. Not in the pit. In the story everyone had been telling themselves since Nathan walked into the academy. Humans were supposed to be durable, maybe. Stubborn, certainly. Strange, without question. But tactical correction delivered calmly to a Vascan-heavy cadet after avoiding a full-speed rush was not part of the approved mythology. Core charged again, slower this time. Though slower for him still meant fast enough to make the sensor pillars sing. He feinted high, pivoted low, and tried to drive Nathan toward the padded boundary where size would matter more than timing. It was a proper academy sequence. Clean. Aggressive. Textbook. Nathan ruined it by refusing to be where the textbook required him to be. He shifted inside the angle, not away from it. Half a step. Then another. He was not running. He was editing the distance. Core's shoulder passed within inches of Nathan's chest, close enough that the air snapped between them, and Nathan simply turned his hips like he was stepping around someone in a grocery store aisle. The comparison occurred to me against my will, and I hated it. Core swung his arm across, not a strike, officially, but a dominance sweep meant to force surrender posture. Nathan dipped beneath it with such casual timing that several cadets leaned sideways in their seats, as if watching him had confused their own balance. Sarah Vaughn whispered, "He is reading him before he moves." I heard her because nobody else was breathing loudly enough to cover it. Core heard it too. His crest flared. Bad sign. Pride had stopped pretending to be disciplined. Stand still, Core growled. Nathan blinked. Why? A dangerous question. A simple question. The kind humans seemed to ask right before established systems began filing complaints. Core lunged, both hands reaching for Nathan's collar, trying to seize control and end the embarrassment with raw strength. The safety field hummed brighter. My hand hovered over the shutdown control. I should have pressed it. Nathan waited until Core's fingers were less than an inch from his shirt. Then he moved. Not dramatically. Not with anger. His left hand touched Core's wrist. His right hand settled against the outside of the armored forearm. He did not yank. He did not twist with visible effort. He simply changed the direction of Core's momentum by a few degrees. A few degrees was enough. The 7-foot cadets stumbled past him, armor compensators whining as they tried to explain the impossible to themselves. Core caught his balance at the edge of the pit and turned slowly. For the first time since I had known him, he did not look insulted. He looked uncertain. Nathan lowered his hands. You should stop using your weight like it is permission, he said. The sentence landed harder than any demonstration I had ever taught. Above us, the frozen archive image still glowed on the screen, the small figure behind the smoke standing exactly as Nathan stood now, relaxed, patient, and terribly familiar. Core stood at the edge of the pit with his hands open, breathing harder now, not from exhaustion but from the terrible effort of thinking. That was new for him. Until that morning, combat had been a language his body spoke before his mind entered the room. Charge, pressure, dominate, collect respect. Simple, reliable, effective against almost everyone who had ever been unfortunate enough to stand in front of him. Nathan Carter had made that language sound childish without raising his voice. The sensor pillars rotated slowly, tracking both cadets, bathing them in thin bands of white light. Core's armor displayed elevated stress indicators across his shoulders and spine. Nathan's academy profile, projected beside the pit for instructional purposes, showed pulse, oxygen use, muscle load, and neurological activity. The numbers were wrong. They had to be wrong. His pulse had risen by 4 beats per minute. 4. Core noticed the class looking at those numbers. So did I? So did Nathan, though he seemed more annoyed by the attention than pleased by it. Core pointed at the projection. He is cheating the monitors. Nathan tilted his head. I'm standing still. No species stays that calm in a fight. This is not a fight yet. The room absorbed that sentence very carefully. Somewhere behind me, a cadet whispered a prayer pattern. Sarah Vaughn did not blink. She was watching Nathan's feet, and I realized she had begun comparing them to the archived figure on the screen. Same weight distribution. Same relaxed knees. Same terrible patience. Core took one step forward. This time there was no showmanship. No roaring. No speech for the class. He lowered his center of mass and moved with real discipline, the kind buried under all that arrogance. Good, I thought despite myself. At least he was learning. He came in with a controlled three-point advance, one hand high to test reaction, one shoulder angled to block a counter, his rear foot ready to pivot away if Nathan tried another redirection. It was the first intelligent thing Core had done all day. Nathan rewarded it by finally changing expression. Not a smile, not approval, just a small narrowing of the eyes. Core reached for him again, slower, cleaner, careful enough that I almost believed he had regained the match. Then his fingers closed around the front of Nathan's shirt. A mistake. The entire academy system seemed to notice at once. The safety field gave one low warning tone. Nathan looked down at Core's hand, then up at Core's face. "Let go," he said. Core's jaw tightened. "Make me." I reached for the shutdown control. I was too late. Nathan's right hand came up and settled over Core's wrist. Nothing dramatic happened at first. No crash, no shout, no theatrical display of strength. Just contact. Then Core's armor began to complain. Softly at first. A pressure warning along the forearm. A balance warning at the hip. A structural alignment alert flashing yellow across the instructor console. Nathan stepped inward, not backward, bringing himself closer to the larger cadet, exactly where every academy manual said a smaller fighter should not go. Core tried to pull away. He could not. That was when the room understood. Nathan was not holding him with rage. He was holding him with math. Angle, leverage, gravity, timing. Earth lessons, apparently. Core's knees dipped as his own weight turned against him. Nathan guided him down 1 inch. Then another, controlled and almost gentle, until the great Vascan cadet had no choice but to kneel or fall. He chose kneeling because pride always tries to negotiate with physics before it loses. Nathan released him immediately and stepped back. Core stayed there, one knee on the pit floor, staring at his empty hand like it had betrayed him. Nathan straightened his shirt. "Now it is a lesson," he said. Sarah Vaughn was the first to understand, and the sound she made was not fear exactly. It was recognition arriving too late. She stood so quickly her chair struck the desk behind her, but her eyes never left the training pit. "Commander," she said, "play the archive again." Core heard her and pushed himself up from one knee, pride dragging him back to his feet before judgment could catch him. "No," he snapped. "The demonstration is not over." Nathan looked at him for a long second. It should be. That should have ended it. There was no insult in his voice, no hunger to humiliate, no desire to turn the room against Core. That was what made it worse. Mercy, delivered calmly, can feel like the deepest insult to someone who built his whole identity around being dangerous. Core stepped back to the center marker and keyed a command into his armor gauntlet. The blue training lights shifted to amber. My instructor console flashed a warning. Emergency performance mode requested. I started to override it, but Core had already locked the sequence through his cadet authorization. Not illegal. Foolish, but not illegal. His armor plates tightened, his movement assisters brightened, and the pit sensors adjusted for high-speed engagement. The cadets above leaned forward despite themselves. Young soldiers always do that when disaster puts on a uniform and calls itself courage. Nathan exhaled once through his nose. "Commander, you may want to shut that off." Core laughed without humor. "Now you want help?" Nathan glanced at me. Not for me. The room felt smaller after that. I reopened Archive File Black Meridian with one hand, while keeping the shutdown command ready with the other. The screen above the lecture hall resumed from the frozen frame. Smoke drifted sideways across the image. The armored squad leader advanced toward the small figure near the broken equipment. His movement pattern was aggressive, disciplined, familiar. Sarah pointed with a shaking hand. "Watch the left foot." In the archive, the squad leader planted his left foot wide before driving forward. In the pit, Core planted his left foot wide before driving forward. My throat went dry. The timing was not similar. It was identical. Core rushed Nathan with a 3-step pressure sequence, faster than before, stronger than before, the kind of advance designed to end demonstrations quickly and restore everyone to the story they preferred. Nathan moved on the second step, not the third, just like the figure in the footage. He turned inside the angle, let Core's force pass across his own center line, and placed one hand against the armor seen below the shoulder. The archive figure did the same thing above us. Different opponent. Same mistake. Same correction. Core's armor gave a sharp electronic protest as his balance broke sideways. Nathan did not strike him. He guided him. That was somehow more disturbing. Core spun, recovered, and came back with a low pivot. On the screen, the squad leader had done the same. Nathan's left hand dropped, caught the motion at the wrist, and redirected it into empty air. The archive mirrored him frame for frame. 112 cadets watched past and present overlap until the classroom forgot how to breathe. Core tried one final surge, all size and training and wounded pride. Nathan stepped through it, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched, and tapped 2 fingers against the center of Core's chest plate. The armor froze. Not broken. Disabled. A perfect system stop. Core stood locked in place, eyes wide behind his visor, while the archive above showed the same small human shape doing the same impossible thing to a soldier who had also realized too late that he was not fighting weakness. Sarah whispered, "It was him." I wanted to correct her. I wanted to preserve some professional distance, some alternate explanation, some comforting technicality. But Nathan Carter had already turned away from Core and looked up at the screen like a man watching bad weather from years ago. "That file is missing context," he said quietly. The phrase missing context did more damage to the classroom than any alarm could have. Cadets understand edited records. They understand battlefield summaries, casualty charts, instructor-approved lessons, the polite little lies institutions wrap around chaos so young officers can sleep before exams. But nobody expects the quiet human in the back row to look at a restricted combat archive and sound disappointed by the quality control. I lowered the pit barrier myself. Core was still locked in. His armor, upright and furious, unable to move anything except his eyes. The suit had obeyed Nathan's 2-finger command as if Earth had written the manufacturer's manual and forgotten to tell the rest of us. "Cadet Carter," I said, and my voice came out lower than intended. "Explain." Nathan looked at Core first. "Release him." The system did not respond to my console. It responded to Nathan touching the chest plate again. One tap. The amber lights dropped back to blue, and Core stumbled one step, free but no longer proud enough to pretend he had meant to pause. He raised his hands, then lowered them. He wanted to continue. I saw the thought cross his face. Then he looked at Nathan and chose survival over theater. That may have been the smartest decision he ever made at Ardent Spiral Academy. Nathan turned toward the screen. "Black Meridian was not a combat engagement," he said. "It was an extraction after a negotiation failed." The cadets did not speak. Even the ventilation seemed careful. I checked the archive credentials on my wrist console, searching for the original event file. Access denied. Then a second line appeared beneath it. Human coalition clearance required. That was impossible. This was my academy, my lecture hall, my lesson plan. Yet the record in front of me had a door I did not own. Nathan stepped out of the pit and climbed the short stairs back toward the class. Unhurried, not breathing hard. His shirt slightly wrinkled where Core had grabbed it. That small wrinkle held the attention of the room like a battle flag. Sarah Vaughn whispered, "What were they extracting?" Nathan passed her row and stopped beneath the blue glow of the screen. For the first time, the calm in his face shifted. Not fear, not anger, something older and heavier. "Cadets," I said automatically, trying to reclaim order, remained seated. No one needed the instruction. They were frozen by attention. Nathan pointed at the broken field equipment in the footage. That was a civilian shelter beacon. The armored unit thought it was a weapons relay. My crest tightened. The Academy translation system rendered every word with perfect clarity, and the clarity made it worse. Core stared from the pit, silent now. Sarah's hands slowly curled against the desk. Nathan continued. They were warned 3 times to step back. They advanced anyway, so I stopped them without escalating the field. Without escalating. The words hung there, polite and monstrous. The archive had shown us elite soldiers losing formation in under 4 minutes. Nathan was telling us that had been restraint. I pulled up his student record with shaking fingers and finally saw the sealed line I should have noticed on admission day. Nathan Carter, Earthborne Tactical Recovery Specialist, Combat Survivor. Demonstration use prohibited without diplomatic authorization. The room read it when I did because my console was still linked to the lecture display. 112 cadets saw the warning appear beneath his name. Core sat down on the pit floor, not defeated by injury, not forced down by strength, but by the sudden understanding that he had picked a classroom argument with someone governments wrote warning labels about. Nathan picked up his folded jacket from the back of his chair and put it on as if class might continue after this. Then he looked at me, calm again, terrible again, and said, "Commander, now they know what the footage was really supposed to scare them away from." After that day, Lecture Hall 7 developed a new kind of silence. Not the silence of discipline. Not the silence of fear before an exam. A deeper thing. The silence of young officers realizing the galaxy had been teaching them the wrong scale. I ended the demonstration because there was nothing left to demonstrate. Cor Vaskin climbed out of the pit without looking at Nathan Carter, and for once nobody blamed him. His armor still worked. His pride did not. The cadets watched him return to his seat with the careful respect normally reserved for unstable engines and diplomatic disasters. Nathan simply sat back in the rear row, folded his hands on the desk, and waited as if he had not just overturned 19 years of my teaching philosophy in under 10 minutes. That was the worst part. He did not act victorious. He did not look proud. He did not smile at Cor, or lecture the room, or enjoy the sudden shift in power. Humans, I had been told, were emotional creatures. Dramatic, loud under stress, dependent on group reassurance. Yet this human had been challenged, insulted, grabbed, and placed under public scrutiny, and his strongest reaction had been mild inconvenience. I closed archive file Black Meridian, but the screen did not go dark immediately. For a final second, the frozen frame remained above us. Smoke, broken equipment, armored shapes, and one small human standing where every tactical model said he should not have survived. Then the display folded into the ceiling. The room felt larger without it. Also less safe. I looked at my cadets. 112 future officers. Most of them raised on the comforting belief that civilization moved from strong species to weaker ones, from protectors to protected, from apex bloodlines to grateful passengers. They had laughed at humans because humans looked breakable. Pale skin, soft voices, 2 eyes, no claws worth naming, no natural armor. They had mistaken restraint for weakness because restraint rarely announces itself with teeth. Sarah Vaughn was the first to stand. Slowly, respectfully, she turned toward the back row and gave Nathan the old perimeter fleet salute, 2 fingers over the heart, palm outward. It was not required. It was not academy protocol. It was something soldiers gave to someone who had walked through a place they hoped never to see. One by one, others followed. Not all of them. Pride dies slowly in military schools. But enough. Cor remained seated for a long moment, jaw tight, eyes fixed on his desk. Then he stood too. His salute was stiff, ugly, reluctant, and probably the most honest thing he had done all semester. Nathan looked uncomfortable. That, more than the demonstration, convinced me the file had been true. Monsters enjoy worship. Humans seemed annoyed by it. I cleared my throat. Today's lesson has changed, I said. My voice sounded older than it had that morning. You were meant to learn what battlefield arrogance looks like from the outside. I looked toward Nathan, then back to the class. Instead, you learned what restraint looks like from the inside. Nobody wrote that down. They did not need to. Some lessons carved themselves into memory without notes. Nathan raised one hand. Commander, I braced myself. Yes, Cadet Carter. He nodded toward the clock. Are we still covering formation failures before lunch? For one impossible second, nobody reacted. Then Sarah laughed. A small, startled laugh. Not mocking. Not defensive. Human, almost. The tension broke just enough for everyone to breathe again, but not enough for anyone to forget. We did cover formation failures before lunch. Very carefully. With Nathan Carter sitting quietly in the back row and every cadet suddenly aware that the back row was not where weak students hid. It was where dangerous students chose to be polite. Years later, when my cadets became officers and faced decisions in disputed space, many of them would remember that day before giving an order. They would remember Cor kneeling without being harmed. They would remember a locked archive opening the wrong truth. They would remember that Earth did not send monsters to the academy. Earth sent calm men who knew exactly when not to become one. And that was when we finally understood the real warning hidden inside Black Meridian. Humans were not terrifying because they could win. Many species could win. Humans were terrifying because they could win, stop, fold their jacket, sit back down, and ask whether class was still on schedule.